The floor was cold glass and my hands were shaking before I even opened my eyes. I heard the hiss of a door sliding open somewhere above me, and my whole body went stiff. I did not know where I was. One moment I had been walking home from school in the evening light, and the next moment there was a bright flash in the sky, a pull like invisible hands grabbing my chest, and then darkness. Now I was here, kneeling on smooth black glass, in a round room that dropped down like a giant bowl, with thick windows circling the top like eyes watching me. I pushed myself up on shaking legs. My name is Mira, and I was 16 years old, and I had never been more afraid in my life. A deep growl rolled through the chamber before I even saw where it came from. I turned, my heart slamming against my ribs, and that is when I saw it. A massive creature stepped out from a dark opening in the wall, its shoulders taller than a grown man, its fur pale as fresh snow, its eyes glowing with a strange golden light. Claws longer than my fingers scraped against the glass floor with every step. It looked like something from an old story, a wolf built by nightmares, and it was walking straight toward me. I wanted to run. My legs would not listen. There was nowhere to run anyway, just curved walls and glass all around, and somewhere above me, shapes were watching from behind thick windows. I could feel their eyes on me even though I could not see their faces clearly. Just tall, shadowy figures pressed close to the glass, waiting. The wolf came closer, and closer still, until I could feel its breath, warm and heavy, against my skin. I closed my eyes. I thought about my mother's voice, about the small garden behind our house, about all the mornings I had taken for granted. I waited for pain. It did not come. I opened my eyes slowly, and found the creature standing just in front of me, its head lowered, not raised in attack. Its ears, which had looked so sharp and dangerous a moment before, were folded flat and gentle against its skull. It was not looking at me the way a hunter looks at prey. It was looking at me the way a lost animal looks at someone who might finally understand it. I do not know what made me do what I did next. Maybe it was fear turning into something else. Maybe it was some old instinct buried deep inside every person. But I lifted my hand, slow and steady, palm facing down, the way my grandfather once taught me to greet a nervous dog. "It is okay," I whispered. My voice cracked, but I kept going. "I know you did not choose this either." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the enormous head moved closer, and the wolf pressed its face gently against my shoulder. I felt its whole body trembling, as if something inside it was fighting against itself. I wrapped my arms around its neck without thinking, holding on the way I might hold on to anything solid in the middle of a storm. Above us, I heard raised voices, sharp and urgent, coming through hidden speakers in a language I could not understand but could feel the anger in. Lights flashed along a metal collar wrapped around the wolf's neck, and the creature suddenly shuddered, its muscles tightening in pain. Whatever that collar was doing, it was fighting against it with everything it had, refusing to let go of me. I stayed still, my arms locked around its neck, whispering the only comfort I had, telling it that it was going to be fine, that we were going to be fine, even though I had no idea if that was true. The wolf turned its body, placing itself between me and the door where the shadowy watchers had entered before. It let out a sound unlike anything I had heard from it, a deep warning growl aimed not at me, but at them. The doors around the chamber opened at once, and armored figures marched in, tall and lean, their skin a strange gray-blue color, their eyes narrow and cold. They carried long devices that hummed with energy, and every single one of them was aimed at us. A voice echoed through the room, translated by some device into words I could understand. "Step away from the creature." I did not move. My legs were still shaking, but something inside me had changed. I was not going to let go. I said, "Step away." The voice grew sharper, more impatient. The wolf answered instead, snapping its jaws toward the nearest figure, forcing it back a step. I felt its whole body tense like a coiled spring, ready to defend me no matter what came through that door. One of the figures raised a small device and pressed something on it. The collar around the wolf's neck flashed bright red, and the creature let out a sound of pain that broke my heart in half. Still, it did not move away from me. It stood its ground, shielding me with its own body, refusing every command they sent through that collar. I do not know how long that standoff lasted. It felt like hours, though it was probably only minutes. The figures argued among themselves in their strange language, glancing nervously at their monitors, at readings that clearly did not make sense to them. I could tell from their voices that something about this moment had shaken their confidence, as if their perfect weapon had just broken a rule they thought could never be broken. Then the ground shook. At first I thought it was another attack, but the tremor came from far above us, not from inside the chamber. Dust drifted down from the ceiling. Alarms began blaring through the whole structure, red lights spinning along every wall. The figures around us stiffened, Their attention pulled away from me and the wolf toward the sound of distant explosions rumbling through the floor beneath our feet. One of them shouted something urgent, and the others turned and ran toward the exit, abandoning their weapons pointed at us, rushing instead to answer whatever emergency had just begun above. The wolf's ears twitched, tracking every sound. It looked down at me, its golden eyes steady despite everything, and somehow I understood what it wanted. It nudged me gently toward the same door the figures had come through, urging me to move. I did not understand what was happening outside, but I trusted the only creature in that entire nightmare that had shown me any kindness. I grabbed a fistful of its fur and let it guide me forward, my legs finally listening again, adrenaline pushing away the fear that had frozen me only minutes before. We moved through a narrow corridor lit by pulsing red light. The walls trembled with each distant impact. I could hear shouting echoing from somewhere ahead, voices speaking a language I recognized this time. Human voices. "Anyone in this section, respond now," a woman's voice called out through a speaker mounted on the wall. "This facility is under attack. All captives, move toward the nearest extraction point." Hope surged through me so suddenly it almost knocked the breath out of me. I picked up my pace, and the wolf matched me step for step, its huge paws silent against the metal floor despite its size. We turned a corner and nearly collided with two of the armored figures rushing the opposite direction. They froze at the sight of the wolf beside me, clearly not expecting to see their prized creature walking calmly next to the very person it was supposed to have destroyed. Before they could raise their weapons, the wolf let out a warning growl so deep it rattled the walls, and the two figures backed away, choosing to run rather than test their luck. I kept moving, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Every hallway looked the same. Curved metal, dim lighting, distant tremors shaking dust from the ceiling. I had no idea where I was going, but the wolf seemed to know, guiding me with small nudges whenever I hesitated at a junction. We reached a wide chamber filled with strange machines, screens glowing with symbols I could not read. A young man in a plain gray uniform spotted us from across the room and shouted, waving his arms, "Over here, quickly!" His name, I would learn later, was Daniel, one of the rescue teams sent from the human fleet that had somehow tracked the signal from my location. He stared at the wolf beside me with wide eyes, clearly torn between fear and confusion, but he did not hesitate to reach out and pull me toward a small vehicle waiting near a torn opening in the wall, a gap blasted through by whatever forces were fighting above us. "What is that thing?" he asked, glancing nervously at the wolf, which had stopped a few steps behind me, watching him carefully. "It saved me," I said simply, though my voice was still shaking. "It is coming with us." Daniel did not argue. He simply nodded, perhaps understanding that there was no time to question something so strange when the whole building was falling apart around us. He guided us both onto the vehicle, a small transport with open sides, and a humming engine that lifted us off the ground the moment we climbed aboard. We shot through the torn opening and out into open air, and for the first time since I had woken up in that glass chamber, I saw the sky. It was not the sky I remembered from home. It was a strange orange color, filled with streaks of light from ships battling somewhere far above the clouds. Below us, the structure I had been trapped inside stretched wide across a barren landscape, smoke rising from several points along its curved roof. The wolf pressed close beside me on the transport, its weight steady and warm, watching everything with sharp, careful eyes. I kept one hand resting on its fur the entire time, afraid that if I let go, I might wake up and discover this was only a dream born from fear. "Hold on," Daniel called back to us, gripping the controls tightly as the transport banked sharply to avoid a burst of energy that lit up the sky just ahead of us. "It is going to get rough." I held on, one hand wrapped around a metal rail, the other still resting against the wolf's fur, and I watched as three larger ships appeared out of the clouds above. Human ships, their hulls marked with symbols I recognized from news broadcasts back home. They opened fire on pursuing enemy fighters that had risen from the structure below, clearing a path for our small transport to slip through the chaos. "They found us," Daniel shouted over the roaring wind, relief flooding his voice. "The fleet actually found us." We soared upward, weaving between bursts of light, the ground falling away beneath us, until the entire alien structure looked like nothing more than a small scar on the landscape below. My stomach twisted with every sharp turn, but I kept my eyes open, refusing to look away from the strange and terrifying beauty of it all, streaks of light crossing the sky like shooting stars gone wrong. The wolf let out a low sound, almost like a comfort, as if it understood my fear and wanted me to know everything would be fine. I found myself believing it, strange as that seemed. We reached one of the larger ships within minutes, sliding into a landing bay that closed behind us with a heavy metallic thud, sealing out the chaos of the battle still raging outside. The moment the engines shut off, several crew members rushed toward the transport, weapons raised out of habit before they saw me, a shaking teenage girl, sitting beside a massive white-furred creature that showed no sign of aggression toward any of them. "Stand down," Daniel called out immediately, raising his hands. "She is a survivor. The creature protected her. It is not a threat." The crew lowered their weapons slowly, though their eyes stayed locked on the wolf with a mixture of caution and wonder. A woman stepped forward, her uniform marked with a rank insignia I did not recognize, her expression calm despite the tension in the room. "My name is Clara," she said gently, kneeling down to my eye level. "You are safe now. Can you tell me your name?" "Mira," I answered, my voice barely above a whisper. "Mira," she repeated softly. "You are safe. We are taking you home." I nodded, tears finally breaking free after everything I had held inside since waking up in that glass chamber. The wolf shifted closer, resting its head gently against my side, and Clara's eyes softened at the sight. "It really did protect you," she said quietly, almost to herself. "We received reports about a creature like this, bred by the enemy to eliminate anything placed in front of it. We never imagined we would see it acting this way." "It refused to hurt me," I said, wiping my eyes. "Even when they tried to force it, it stood between me and them instead." Clara studied the wolf for a long moment, and something in her expression shifted from caution to quiet respect. "Whatever happened in there," she said, "it chose you over everything it was built to do. That is rare, even among our own kind." The ship shuddered slightly as it pulled away from the battle, engines roaring to life as we climbed higher into the darkening sky, leaving the alien structure and its chaos far behind. I sat quietly for a long while, my hand resting on the wolf's fur, listening to the steady rhythm of its breathing, feeling safer than I had felt in what seemed like days, though it had only been a few hours since everything began. Daniel came over eventually, offering me a warm drink and a blanket, sitting down across from me with a curious expression. "How did you calm it down back there?" he asked. "Everyone who has ever seen reports about that creature described it as unstoppable, built purely to destroy. You just walked up to it and it protected you instead." I thought about the question for a moment, remembering the way the wolf had lowered its head, the way its ears had folded back, the way it had trembled under the pain of that collar, yet still refused to leave my side. "I do not think it wanted to hurt anyone," I said slowly. "I think it was just following orders it never chose for itself. When I did not run, when I tried to be kind instead of afraid, it seemed to remember something it had forgotten a long time ago." Daniel nodded slowly, glancing at the wolf, which had curled up beside me, its golden eyes half closed but still watchful. "Maybe that is the difference," he said. "They tried to build the perfect weapon. They forgot that even weapons can choose something different if someone gives them a reason to." I looked down at the wolf, running my fingers gently through its soft fur, and for the first time since this entire ordeal began, I allowed myself to smile. The ship continued its journey through the stars, carrying us farther from that terrible chamber and closer to home. Word of what had happened spread quickly among the crew, and soon others came by, curious and cautious, watching the massive creature that had defied everything it was built for simply because a frightened girl had shown it a moment of kindness. I named it later that night, sitting quietly in a small room they had given me to rest, the wolf curled protectively at the foot of my bed. I called it Frost, because of the way its fur had shimmered like fresh snow the very first moment I saw it, back when I believed it was going to be the end of everything. Instead, it became the beginning of something else entirely, a reminder that even in the darkest, coldest places built by cruelty, kindness could still find a way to survive, and sometimes, it was kindness alone that turned the fiercest weapon in the galaxy into the gentlest protector I would ever know. Word of what happened that day reached far beyond our small ship. News of the creature that refused to attack, the wolf that turned against its own masters to shield a human girl, spread across military channels and eventually into public broadcasts back on Earth. People who had feared the enemy's endless weapons now spoke of Frost with a strange kind of hope, a sign that even the most terrifying creations could still choose compassion when given the chance. As for me, I never forgot those first terrifying moments in that glass chamber. The fear that had frozen my legs, the golden eyes that had studied me with something other than hunger. I carried that memory with me for the rest of my life, not as a nightmare, but as proof that even in the most hopeless moment, a single act of kindness could change everything. Frost stayed by my side from that day forward, no longer a weapon built for destruction, but a companion who had chosen, in the space of a single breath, to become something far greater than what anyone had ever designed him to be.